And hi once again. We hope this video finds you well as we are going to break into 5 different ways to think about when creating embedded time for collaboration. We know timetabling and schedules are starting to come to the forefront in our minds, so want to be able to share 5 different ways here today.
Are you a leader who is navigating the nuances of leading collaborative response in your school or district? Are you unsure of what collaborative response is? Are you looking to understand the critical role leadership plays when establishing and refining a collaborative response approach?
Collaborative response began as a grassroots approach to focus on the needs of students through a framework of collaboration. That approach has grown to a movement that is training leadership and education.
Through the Leading Collaborative Response podcast, Kurtis and I share our own experiences of leading collaborative response and lessons learned as we continue to learn and gain insight through the experiences of working alongside others. We also have the opportunity to engage in conversations with school and divisional leaders implementing the framework in their own organizations.
We know great leaders build great teams because that is what every child deserves. Subscribe to the Leading Collaborative Response podcast and join the thousands of schools seeing success for students through intentional and focused collaborative efforts.
Before we jump into the episode, remember to join our mailing list at jlinsiders.com. Every Saturday, we send out an exclusive video only to our mailing list, along with other templates, resources, videos, and more. We also share upcoming events and opportunities you may not hear about anywhere else. Go to jlinsiders.com to become part of the JL Insider community. So when we think about creating time for collaboration and embedding that in our timetables, it can often seem overwhelming.
Oh, for sure. And for many, especially intro sessions that we do around collaborative response, the very first comment, and which leads to the first barrier, is how do I possibly make this happen in my
How do I
schedule?
provide the time? And we often say, don't worry about providing the time initially. Worry about understanding the layers of collaboration, because until you have a good understanding, it's hard to schedule for something you're not aware of. So we've even said in that first year, find a team that's willing to do an after-school meeting to start getting an understanding or a practice.
With that piloting idea.
Utilizing a PD day to be able to introduce it to our staff teams.
Well, and there's lots of different opportunity, like I said, on, even part of the staff meeting after school or on those PD days or early dismissal times that you can even just grabbing that hour of time to be able to really focus on the structures and processes that you're trying to move forward on. So when we think longer term, though, eventually you really want to be able to embed that time.
Absolutely.
And when we embed time, it sends a couple of messages to our teams. One is that this is so important in the work going forward that we want to make sure that we have time actually in our day that's dedicated to this teamwork.
Which really sends that message that this is part of the work that we do. The time we spend in the classroom, the time we spend preparing, and the time we spend collaborating is all how we are providing that best instructional support and response for our students.
Well, and when we think about sustainability too, that's a part of it as well. If we can embed that time in our calendar, in our schedule, then it becomes just a part of the way that we do things and allows us to continue to grow and expand, but knowing that that is part of our scheduling expectations going forward. And of course, you'll have tweaks.
Yeah, absolutely.
No matter how many times you set up those schedules, there's always going to be things that you need to refine and adjust going forward.
Well, we talk about this ready, fire, aim, and you have to do it when it comes to
scheduling
timetabling and scheduling as well. Every year when I would, as a principal, work with the team to create the schedules. It tweaked and changed every year
for sure.
because nothing was the exact same from year over year for us to be able to use the exact same format. So it does take some out of the box thinking, but we've seen so many ways that schools have found the ability to create the embedded time. And when we've had the chance to reflect, I've done many workshops around this now. Almost every way that a school is creating that time falls into one of 5 overarching categories.
So the very first one, we actually used quite a lot in our school early on to be able to create that time. So tell us a little bit about buddies and mentors.
Okay, so
we'll be right back to continue this episode. Have you ever engaged in multiple meetings for a student that led to several next steps or actions? Have you ever been frustrated by knowing who is doing what and who has completed those actions? Have you ever felt like you were spending time following up on the follow-up actions? When meeting notes are documented in WeCollab, all actions are noted, followed up directly after the meeting with an email, and set as actions in the software. This information can be easily accessed through the Actions tab that records all actions for a particular student from any meeting in which they are discussed. Start your free trial now to experience the power of WeCollab. And now back to our conversation.
This first one is really about freeing up a portion of our staff to be able to go collaborate while the other portion is working with students. So most of the times at an elementary level, we might see this as reading buddies. Okay, so the grade 3s and the grade 6s come together, or these particular classrooms come together for the students to engage in a buddy activity. One of the team members stays in the classroom with the students, the other is freed up to be able to collaborate into teams. And it takes a little bit of coordination, but lots of times we hear of schools that we've had this buddy structure for a number of years. It's just a good community builder within our school, but all it took was just a little bit of coordinating when it happens, and we can create that free up of time. And we've seen other examples where it didn't have to be reading buddies. It could be math games. It could be phys ed games that people are playing, just utilizing that buddy. And then we've also seen at some of the older levels, the idea of some mentor time, so that I'm going to work with my mentor. And we saw one school that set it up almost like a genius hour type approach, where those two people working as mentor and mentee are working on a project. And again, a staff member stays with, another one goes for collaboration. And usually what this ends up doing is, if we've set it up that it's happening on a weekly basis, it means that one week you're collaborating, I'm with the kids, the next week it flips, so that it means every 2 weeks we're getting time to be able to embed that collaboration
in a rather simplistic way, actually, because that's not terribly hard to negotiate. Other than, one of the biggest things that we hear from schools engaging in that is that just making sure that that time is still intentional. And
you structure
we still have outcomes that we're working toward achieving with the buddies or with the mentors, however that looks, but still being intentional about the instructional time.
So that's that first overall category. And by the way, I've also seen schools that integrate multiple types of these categories. We did as a school as well, because how we provided release time for our youngest the teachers at the youngest grades was different than at the older. Okay, so the second category that we see is what I like to refer to as 2 for 1. And it's the idea that we are going to release 2 people through the use of 1 person to be able to cover. And this was one that we used a lot within our school. And I'll share a few different examples of what I mean by this. What would happen is 2 classes would come together. Usually in our school, we did it through either the library or the gym, where it could be a larger group of people. One person would stay and then it would free up two. So lots of times we had at one point grade level teams where we would have 3 teachers on a grade level team. We take those 3 teachers, and rather than trying to find coverage for 3, we put the kids into 2 classes. And now we now only need 2 people to cover off to release 3. So it's again, that same principle. And I've seen this in another school where they created larger groups for one would go for some choral music activities. The others would go to gym for some fitness centers. That again could be done with larger groups.
We often see schools use of the library in this one as well. So that, that provides release in that way too. And then they might alternate too. So group 1, which is 2 classes together, goes to the gym, and group 2 would go
2 classes to the library, let's say. And then they would flip so that we'd have 2 periods of release time. For instance,
depending on your schedule.
Saw another school that were doing some really intentional coding activities, but again, same thing, larger groups of students, and it was actually the assistant principal who would then be with the students to be able to free up those that were going to collaborate.
So the third idea, it really helps me to think through as we negotiate and try to help people work through the scheduling, but really helping to think about who is on the floor with students and who is off the floor in collaboration.
And this is one we see being utilized really successfully at junior high and secondary levels through the use of a flex block, a tutorial block, a success block, whatever we want to call that. But the idea being that, and I was recently in a school where it was on Wednesdays, every Wednesday, a team would get released off the floor. And so we might normally, let's say for simplicity's sake, have 20 adults available during this block. Well, today at this time, we're only going to have 16 because 4 people are going off the floor. 16 stay on the floor, another 4 go off. And we've seen this at multiple, I can think of a number of different high schools where they've adopted this, where some of the staff stay on the floor with students during that time, another go off the floor to meet. And I'm thinking of one school in particular where every day during that block, a different team was going off the floor. And it again took some coordination, but it was a really powerful way to get regular, consistent, embedded collaboration time.
And when we think about that flex time, then it's really thinking about what are the students during that time. Is it a time to catch up with homework? Is it tutorial? Is it library research time? Like there's so many different ways that you can set up that time for students too.
Absolutely. So the fourth general area that we've seen utilized quite successfully. We'll be right back to continue this episode. Have you ever wondered how to make your collaborative team meetings more productive, engaging, and impactful? We know that healthy, well-structured collaborative team meetings are the key to driving innovation and addressing student needs. But there is one essential ingredient that determines their success: effective facilitation. That's where our online course, Facilitating Effective Collaborative Team Meetings, comes in. Designed and facilitated by myself, Kurtis Hewson, author of Collaborative Response and co-founder of Jigsaw Learning, this course gives you the tools, strategies, and structures to transform your team meetings from routine discussions into powerful problem-solving sessions. In this course, you'll learn what makes a collaborative team meeting different from traditional student meetings, the structural components needed for effective collaboration, practical facilitation strategies to maximize your team's impact. And the best part, it's self-paced, takes about 3 hours to complete, and you'll receive a certificate of completion to recognize your learning. Consider enrolling yourself or members of your team responsible for facilitating collaborative team meetings. If you're ready to lead collaborative meetings that actually drive change, enroll now. Access the course at jigsawlearning.ca/publications/courses.
That's jigsawlearning.ca/publications/courses. Let's make every meeting count. And now back to our conversation.
A general area that we've seen utilized quite successfully, and it really depends on what resources you have available at your school, but it's the intentional utilization of specialists. So we've seen this often, and this might actually combine a little bit with that 2-for-1 idea where we're utilizing phys ed teachers, music teachers, drama, whatever types. And again, it really depends on the resources available at the school as far as staffing, but being able to coordinate those specialists. I can think of one school where they had at their disposal 3 different specialist teachers. And they just coordinated the schedule so that they would move on a rotation where one class was with this one was with another, one was with another. They would cycle through, and it actually gave the teachers 3 available times that they were off for some collaboration time.
And that certainly works for any school that has those specialists.
And now there's,
It's
of
not
course, with
always, because I think right away of small schools who don't have the opportunity to have those specialists.
This is why we're talking about 5 different ways, because there's going to be many of these. And this is actually one of the struggles when it comes to timetabling is you see how one school has done it, but you go, oh, we could never do that because we don't have a music teacher in our building. So it's just trying to think with some innovation or creativity. This 5th one, we use the overarching category of utilization of additional resources. And really this can look in a number of ways. I've seen a school where they had some budgetary discretion where they could bring in a 0.2 additional FTE and then utilize that
for
release time. And again, people go, additional surplus budget. Yeah, thanks. Again, it's something that some schools have been able to utilize. Here in our own province of Alberta, we have something as far as resources referred to as assignable time. And we've seen lots of schools view that as an additional resource where I can use some assignable time that I have to be able to direct my teaching staff, and we utilize that assignable time before school or after school potentially to be able to bring in some additional collaboration time. When we talk about additional resources, I've also seen the use of community volunteers. Worked with one Catholic school where they actually use some of their connections with parish to be able to provide some of that release time. Again, when it comes to additional resources, we've seen oftentimes schools utilize substitutes and budget substitute dollars to be able to be an additional resource to release teachers for collaboration.
We also have seen some schools where the assistant principal leads an assembly and the educational assistants are in the gym with the assistant principal leading that assembly, saying really all the kids are in that space, and then it releases.
And that's really another good example of that on the floor, off the floor concept for us as well. So I hope this has given you some food for thought. I know that we didn't share really specific examples, but we are in the process of developing a timetable course. It's been on the agenda for quite a while. I've often led lots of in-person and online workshops that focus in on thinking about timetabling from a different mindset, trying to embed in that collaboration and intervention time. But our intent is to put it together into a resource that can be utilized by lots of leaders that are looking for support around timetabling. And of course,
realizing and remembering that it's very contextual.
Oh,
so
100%.
Creating that timetable, creating that collaborative space for teams to be able to get together, it really depends on each situation, each school, how many staff you have, what is the context of your school community. So really understanding that these ideas are just general ideas that allow you to start thinking, what is it that you
Yeah.
currently have? And then what are some possibilities of what you could
But
explore
you're
in
so
this
right about
timetable?
context, because I've come in and worked individually in dozens of schools now that wanted some help and support around timetabling. And usually that conversation starts with about 90 minutes of questions, asking questions about resources that you have
Oh,
available,
yeah.
staffing, student populations. Usually we'll have a whiteboard filled with different considerations that we need to put up because it's not going to look the same in every building. Context matters for sure. But hopefully these 5 big ideas can spark some ideas for you. So please reach out. We would love to hear how you've managed to create embedded time within your timetable or schedule. Reach out if you have questions or looking for any additional support. We'd love to be able to help in any way, because we know that if the collaboration is essential for student success, we have to find a way to make it just a regular part of our school day. Needs to be embedded over time. So with that, thank you so much, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
See you soon.
For more on collaborative response, visit jigsawlearning.ca or join the JL Insider to receive access to newly added resources and content. Make sure to follow us on social media. Subscribe to the podcast and the Jigsaw Learning YouTube channel to access past and upcoming episodes. Join us again to continue to build your own capacity and leading collaborative response in your context.